Good morning, everyone, and welcome to River City Plus, the show after the show. Today, I have two incredible female guests here with me today. Sharing the stage, we have Celia Ochoa, author and writer, and also Dr. Tanya Lee. So, ladies, thank you so much for joining me today on River City Plus. We're happy to have you.
Thank you so much for having us.
So, Celia, I'd love to start off with you. Your information was shared with me because one of our photojournalists actually was so incredibly moved by your story as a refugee, and you have shared that very articulately in your memoir. And I'd love to understand how you got connected with Dr. Lee, because she has also commented on your book, on your journey. So we have so much to cover, honestly, in such a short amount of time. I say we just dive in and start sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's truly one of those crazy moments to here in Jacksonville, of all places, for us to connect. So I am co-owner with my spouse of a photo booth company called Center Shot Selfies, and we are official partners with the Jacksonville Iceman team. So we gave away tickets to one of the games, and her friend brought her. So she came over to say thank you for the tickets. I was working the game, and she just happened to ask what kind of events we do with the photo booth. And I got into, we do the typical, the weddings and things like that, but that we've kind of ventured into doing unique events. And then I mentioned author signings. So what I like to do is when I do an author signing, I bring the booth with me just to kind of give that experience. And we started talking about that, and she said, well, what book did you write? And then we started talking about it, and she said, oh my God, I fed you. So she was a Navy sailor in Guantanamo Bay when I was there from 94 to 95 as a refugee. So that's kind of how it all started, and that was March 15th, and we've... Look at us now. Yeah.
Right. Like I said, such an incredible story. I almost didn't even know how to start chipping away at that iceberg, so I'm so amazed that you did that so succinctly. So bringing this completely full circle, what was that feeling like for you, Dr. Tanya?
It was so euphoric to just meet somebody that had been there. Of course, I was embarrassed. That's the first thing I could think of to say. But I got so excited because we were there at the same time, and we weren't allowed to talk to the refugees at that point. So it was great to reconnect with her, hear her experience being over there, share my experience, which was very different, and then bring it all together, which is so amazing. I bought her book that night. I read it as soon as I got it. It's an excellent read. I highly recommend it for anyone, really, truly.
Now, Celia, can you tell me how it is that you were able to bring all of your history into this one book? Because your story is really incredible as a refugee. When you describe being in ankle deep water, getting into a boat that was handmade and risking everything, including your lives at such a young age, and somehow distilling all of that down into a book. What is it that you want people to understand about someone who is a refugee? For me, it's really challenging because the only reason we have borders is because we believe they're there. It's not something that was God-made. It's not something that was ever established. It's something that's made up. The world really belongs to everybody. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, so, we're 30 years later almost, and I think we're kind of, again, in the same kind of situation where there's a lot of refugees, a lot of people trying to get into the country, and I truly understand, the arguments against it and trying to regulate or control that. But with this book, and something that I talked about in a podcast that I did, was that the one thing that I want people to understand, especially people that are against, the immigration and refugees coming in, is that we don't want to leave our homes. For me, it's the only place I ever knew. It was the only home I knew. So leaving it was scary. It's not something we want. It's something that we feel we have to do, because wherever you are, for us in Cuba, I can't even imagine if we had stayed what our life would have been like. And I don't think that it would have been a good life. I don't think that we would have had a good, especially because of our connection with General Arnaldo Ochoa. Just our last name alone was a target. So I think the number one thing that I want people to understand is that we don't want to leave the only homes we've ever known. It's something that we feel we have to do to better ourselves and our future.
I mean, there's reasons when people describe people exiting countries, they use words like flee, escape, run. They're words with a truly negative impact. So I wish people would take a little more heed at that and be a little more empathetic to it, because like you said, you're having to leave everything and you're taking what you can carry. So Dr. Tanya, when you were in this situation, especially as the kind person that I already know you to be in the short time that we've met, how was it for you having to be in the situation where you couldn't do what your heart was leading you to want to do?
That's been a challenge for me as an empath most of my life. My heart, and it beats for people like that, for social injustice, for people that don't have the means to do the things that they want to do. My daughter happens to be an immigrant. She came over from Morocco, so I adopted her from Africa. So I appreciate when people do what they say they're going to do, and words matter, and people matter. You know, it was very, very hard for me to stand there and feed people and not be able to speak with them. And then it's also hard to go back up to accommodations that we know that they're living in horrible accommodations, and we at least had showers.
Right, right.
So
Looking back on times like that, looking back on that period of your life, what is it that you want people to know and change? If you could give them one thing just to understand and do better at starting today, starting tomorrow.
I'm with excuse me, with the immigrant conversation again, I think it's to try to see it from someone else's point of view. You know, it's easy for us to say, you know, they're coming here and they're taking over our jobs or our countries, but we don't take the moment to imagine what their life is like where they are. So I think I just want people to just take a second and think about a little bit more about why people are escaping their countries, why people are coming here, because there's hope here. There's hope for a better future, for, you know, for your kids, for your families. So I think that would be the main thing, is just to take a second and try to see it from someone else's point of view.
Yeah, my hope would be for people to be kinder. Yes, Dr. Tanya.
they always say the highest form of intelligence is empathy. When you can put yourself in somebody else's shoes and actually mimic and feel what they're going through, that's the sign of strength and empathy, and that's what will bring us all together.
I'm really glad to know that, because I'm always the hardcore empath of our group, and I'm crying like, you know, 9 out of the 10 days here. So I appreciate that. Celia, you're touching the table a lot, so I thought it'd be a great time for us to just talk through some of these things and what they are, because that's one thing that's so experiential, is when we see things from a past in a world that we haven't gotten to connect with.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is just a couple things that we've kind of kept over the years. So this is actually a radio from Radio Shack that was gifted to us by one of the guards. You know, in the beginning, we didn't have radio, we didn't have TV, we didn't have anything to kind of pass the time. And as things got better in the detention camps, you know, refugees started making their own newspapers. They started doing art. We were lucky to be gifted some radios to be able to listen to you know, newscasts. And then probably the most important thing that I have on here, these are 2 out of our 4 trackers. So they used to be watch bands, and then when we left, they weren't supposed to give it to us, but some of the guards were nice enough and asked if we wanted to keep them. So in here is some kind of scanning. So what they would do is they would scan our wrists as we moved from different camps. So when the children got to go to the park, they would scan us out of our regular camp that we would sleep in, and then they'd scan us into the park. So that way they always knew where we were throughout the detention camps. Yeah, so they just kind of cut one of the bands, cut the other one, made a hole, and just turned it into a necklace. So one of these is my mom's, and the other one was my father's.
So I feel compelled to ask, this was something that someone else was using to track your every move. Why did you want to keep it?
You know, I think when you go through something like that, even though it was something hard and a difficult time in your life, it's something that kind of helps to turn you into who you're going to be in the future. You're either going to go one way or you're going to go the other. You're going to use that as a positive thing to be better in your life, or you're going to go down the other path. I chose to go the path of building a better life. That was the whole reason why we risked our lives. That's the whole reason why we spent those months in the camp. And I think, I mean, these watch bands especially, because they're how they tracked us the whole 10 months that we were there. I think it's just a memory of, you know, I went through that, you know, and I think I've been here almost 30 years. So sometimes you kind of forget and you take things for granted that you have here because you're just so used to it at this point. But these are reminders, you know, of where I came from and why I am who I am today, and why I always strive to do better is because of what I've been through.
So how can we support you moving forward? How can we support you, what you're doing? Obviously, book a photo booth. Everyone likes a selfie moment, obviously, but most importantly, your book.
Yeah. So the photo booth, of course, Center Shot Selfies.
Marketing, we support it all day, every day.
Center Shot Selfies. But yeah, also the book. You know, as a self-published author, one of the toughest things to navigate through that is self-promotion and getting your book out there. That's the hardest part with self-publishing. And the book, it is available on Amazon. It is available at a couple local stores here in Jacksonville. It's available at the Literary Lounge. It's available at Happy Medium. Femfire on and off stocks it. So if you just go in there and ask her, I'm sure she'll order it. It's also in Green Cove Springs at Present Tense Coffee and Books. That's one of my favorite places to go. But yeah, just the book. Social media. I'm on Instagram, Read with CEO. That's the best place to come by and support me and see everything that's going on with the book.
Fantastic. Well, ladies, thank you so much for joining us. I wish we had a whole day to connect with you ladies further, but thank you so much for sharing the studio with us. And I'll make sure that you have all the links below to stay connected with this story to follow it further. So guys, thank you so much for joining us here on River City Plus. We'll see you tomorrow bright and early for River City Live.